Hello and welcome to Kirtan London Journey to Joy, episode number 17, with your hosts for today, obviously myself, Madhva, and again, I am joined by our very, very special guest, highly appreciated, wonderful Acyuta Gopi, who has joined us again. This is our third episode. We're going through chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita. And we're really excited. I'm really grateful to have Acyuta with us again. We're moving through this chapter really slow, which is amazing because it means the Acyuta keeps coming back so that we can finish the chapter together. And I'm excited for the content that we have today. If you saw last episode, you'll notice I came a little flustered, a little unprepared. Today I'm feeling prepared. I've done my research. I've been reading the books. I've been making notes. I listened back to the previous episode and I'm feeling ready to roll.
You are on it.
I'm on it today. So, however, with all of that being said, as you know, we always start our Journey to Joy podcast episodes with an invocation prayer, a mantra, which is there for us to offer our gratitude to our teachers who have given us this process and to invite their blessings on us while we do this as well. And again, I'm going to pass it to Acyuta because she says it or sings it so beautifully. So please, Acyuta, I'll pass it to you to take it away.
Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Making me smile while you were chanting those prayers because I listen to you a lot. We play the Radha Desh mellows a lot in my house on our phone sometimes, and so your kirtan comes up a lot. And you were just, while you were reciting those prayers, I was just appreciating and relishing the richness of your voice. Never mind your bhakti, your devotion, but it was very wonderful. Thank you for that, Acyuta. We have a few people joined us already, which is epic. Veena, nice to see you. Again, Manjari for life as well. Lovely to see you, and Leeleshwari. Thank you for being
all our
here.
Friends.
Sorry?
I said all our friends.
Yeah, exactly. All the cool people. Okay, so we left off last episode. We left off at text 4 of chapter 8. Made a few notes, like I said, so I'm going to go through those just briefly. Spoke about more than this, but here were some of the key things that we discussed. So we spoke about this idea of service, surrender, and service, and what that looks like versus becoming a doormat or a walkover. We spoke a lot. We started by talking about what are fruitive activities. So actions in service versus actions for a selfish motive, and why it was important to move away from fruitive activities. We spoke about personalism versus impersonalism and how people relate to God, the divine, those understandings. We spoke about how much we appreciate bhakti yoga for its sweetness, for the sweetness that God brings to his relationships, that despite his majestic supremacy, he still will run in fear from his mother, who's chasing after him with a stick because he stole some butter and broke the pot. So just this level of divine intimacy was something we spoke about. And then we felt like we finished up around the subject of free will, how we've chosen to move away from this person, from God, and that's why we're here. Yeah. And you brought it home. You were I remember you saying to me, imagine Sundari, my wife, said, it's been a good run, but I'm out of here. and like that, that's what we've done with God. And so we spoke about a lot. It was a really great episode. We answered a few questions, and now we're picking up from text 5, which is really starting to get into the meat of this particular chapter. So with that recap, Acyuta, let me pass it.
That recap was actually pretty perfect. Like amazingly perfect. Okay.
This time I can't. I remembered how unprepared I was last time. I thought, ain't happening again. I'm doing my research.
Thank you. Yeah, and just looking at one last point from the purport of text 4, just kind of towards the end of the purport. Srila Prabhupada says, the gigantic universal form of the Lord called Adi Devatam is contemplated by the neophyte who cannot approach the Supreme Lord in his manifestation as Supersoul. The neophyte is advised to contemplate the universal form whose legs are considered the lowest planets, and whose eyes are considered the sun and the moon, and whose head is considered the upper planetary system. So Krishna's kind of given Arjuna this whole rundown, right? He's like, who is the Lord of Yajna and all these things? Like, I'm super soul, everybody's heart, but I'm also really big and universal. And what I really love about that, just that section, is that one, Krishna will meet you where you're at, and this becomes a theme, not just in this chapter, but of course throughout the whole Bhagavad Gita, is that Krishna is going to meet you wherever you are. And what I find so beautiful is that sometimes we can get really caught up as Krishna kids, as devotees, whatever label we decide to put on ourselves or not. We can kind of get caught up in what's the right way to preach? What's the right way to give this information to people? And I've often heard people say, oh, why you got to water it down and call it the universe? Why do you got to like, and I love this purport because that's actually kind of correct. You've got like new people, they are advised to look at the universal form. Like, yeah, if the word God gives you an allergic reaction, and we can't get to that place where we're in that intimate connection just yet, then yes, absolutely, the universe is in charge. And right there, it's like the gigantic universal form of the Lord is contemplated by the neophyte who cannot approach the Supreme Lord in his manifestation as super soul. And it's not saying that he can never gonna contemplate it, but like at that point when you're just getting to know somebody, you don't want to level jump, you're just starting to like rekindle this relationship. But yeah, we don't have to be so afraid to look at these ways of relating to the Supreme Person. If somebody calls it the universe and you're calling them the universe, and that's where you two can understand each other and have a common language, then that's perfectly more than acceptable. It's actually true, like a valid truth. And so I kind of liked that. So interestingly that spirituality has taken this turn where people are so much more comfortable saying the universe, and sometimes preachers are so not comfortable adopting that, like they feel like it's like so like far out and hippy dippy, and it's like, but also it's kind of true, kind of exactly true for exactly where they are. And Krishna is so merciful and so inclusive, right, and so willing to meet us on the path that he's like, no problem, cool, call me the universe, cool, get closer, I'll meet you there, I'll meet you wherever you are, no problem.
I love that you picked up on that. I would never have read that. I would never have read into it that far and gone to that level of realization that you took from just that little sentence there. And I really appreciate it. And something I also appreciate listening to you speak is that, well, it's a slightly different point, but it's similar. And it's something else that I appreciate about this, particularly about bhakti yoga, which is that it's so inclusive, like you said. And so when you see these opposites or these arguments take place, which is that, no, it's like this, the divine is impersonal, or it's just a big universal form, or it's just light, and so on and so forth. No, it's just God, blah, blah, blah. And it's personal, etc. When you look at Krishna consciousness, the way I've come to understand it, and right here, this is what Krishna is saying, you can appreciate that both are true. Yeah. And so it's not a case of, yeah, I'm right and you're wrong. It's you're right. With bhakti yoga, the only thing is, it's not that you're wrong, you're right. Universal form, bright light, it's all there. It says it here, but it's exactly like that in the scriptures, in the Vedic text. It's just, there's more, my friend. There's more, that's all.
Yeah. That's, you hit it right, nail on the head. Like, I feel like that is what I love about bhakti yoga. It's no longer about this or that. With Krishna, it's always, and also. Like, and also. There's and also look at this. My own spiritual teacher, my guru, described it really awesomely in a lecture. He said, if somebody were to say to you, 2 + 2 is 4, and then you learn that, and then you think, well, that's the only way to get to 4. But then you grow up, and then somebody says, but 2 × 2 is also 4. Are you going to say, but no, that can't be, because 2 + 2 is 4? They're like, yeah, but 2 × 2 is also 4. Like, you can also, and 4 × 1 is 4. And then 3 - 1 is also 4. And you're like, no, it's just 2 + 2. Like, I don't think you understand what's happening here. Like, you've got to stop all this moving around. It's just 2 + 2. And it's like, yeah, but once you get older and you get a greater understanding, there are so many different ways to get to 4. And then you start realizing that, yeah, it's and also.
I love that. And it doesn't just apply to impersonalism and personalism. It applies to, from what I can understand, to God as a whole. So if I relate to God, if I'm on my path to trying to relate to God and I call him Allah, for example, and I'm practicing very sincerely, then you might call that 3 + 1.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if I'm trying to access my path to God and I'm doing it 2 + 2, and you're trying to access your path to God and you're doing it 5 - 1, and like that. So it's so inclusive that it makes sense. What's never made sense to me is this idea that I'm right and you're wrong. And just because you're practicing something which looks different to what I'm practicing, despite having the same intention in your heart, you're going to hell and I'm going to heaven. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, my friend. I'm sorry. What can I tell you? It doesn't make sense.
And also, I think what I always liked about bhakti yoga, well, also, how forgiving we are. Because, when you said 5 - 1, I was like, oh yeah, now everybody's going to know that I don't really do math, but I do homeschool, but with the book and the answers. So, but you're like 5 - 1. I was like, oh yeah, that's 4, right?
Because you said 3 - 1, right?
Yeah, I was like, that's not 4.
But I wasn't going to say nothing though.
See, but that's how forgiving bhakti yoga is. but yeah, and there's no, what we don't have here is a perpetual damnation.
There's no such thing as eternal damnation,
which I really enjoy. I was kind of thinking about it yesterday, and I was kind of chanting and thinking, and I was thinking, people don't get mad at gravity and science. Like, oh my God, I jumped and I had to come back down again. Like, I cannot believe that science did this to me. And when science goes for every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. Like, nobody's getting mad at all the scientists. Like, oh my God, how could you say that? It's ridiculous. And so I was thinking, but when we get to like laws of karma, we get to these different things, we somehow find the need to get angry with God. And God's like, I didn't do that. That's kind of just like, that's the way nature works. Like I kind of let material nature do her thing, as it's Durgashtami today. I was like, I let material nature do her thing, gave her free reign. She's in charge. But now everybody's like, we all feel the need to get up in arms, because if not, then who we're stuck sitting with ourselves being mad at the responsibility that we have to take for our own actions. And that's not fun.
Shruti, you speak so eloquently. You speak so darn well. You put things so nicely. They make so much sense. And I really appreciate it. This is a good time because you mentioned Durgashtami. A few people making comments in YouTube. And we have Siliguri. Forgive me if I said that wrong. But they're coming in from West Bengal. And he was saying, Happy Durga Puja. Happy Durga Puja. Right back at you. Veena Sharma loved your little allergic reaction. Where did you say that to?
People have an allergic reaction
to the word God. Yeah. Yeah. That was fantastic. And Rafael Ruiz, nice to see you, my friend. And he loved the 2+2 explanation. He said it actually answered a lot of old questions that he's had. So that's really good. Yeah, it was a beautiful analogy. So nicely put.
Got to give that credit to Radhanath Swami. But
yeah. Just quickly touching back on there's no eternal damnation. It makes sense again. Sorry, it's just when you one thing I also like about Bhakti Yoga, Krishna Chaitanya, here we are just banging on about all the things we like, is you can use your logic. And we said this last time as well. You have to come in with your mind, your intelligence. You don't renounce that. I forgot to make that in my notes, but we spoke about this last time, that you can bring your intelligence to what you're hearing. It's not that we come combatively, but we come with our intelligence. You don't just have to renounce that and dogmatically accept what you hear. So when someone says that there's an all good, all loving God, and then the same sentence says there's also an eternal damnation of hell if you screw this life up, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And I emphatically slap my face because it's so unsensical.
Yeah. I mean, in my family, we've kind of put it this way. We're like, if your parents get mad at you, they might ground you or send you to the corner. But do they send you to the corner forever? I mean, it feels like forever when you're little, but really it's like 5 minutes, and then you get out the corner and you go live the rest of your life. And so then we're like, so then how can my parent be more compassionate, more forgiving, a better parent than God?
Yeah.
If God is supposed to be the best at everything.
Yeah. So from the Krishna conscious perspective, from the Bhakti Yoga perspective, there is a hell. But it's like you said, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You do something really horrible, you've got to get a reaction for that. You might have to go to a lower planet where in order to get the reaction of that thing you did, you go somewhere else to experience it. It's not very nice. You might go there for a long time if you've done lots of horrible stuff.
Yeah. And, interestingly enough, most of the time, like people think of these different like lifestyles and stuff, like, and you think about hellish planets and all the suffering that happens there. And for a while, usually what happens is people think they're enjoying the whole situation, and then it's uncomfortable, and then it's kind of not. Like if you think about it, you think about pigs, right? And you think about a pig's diet, which includes anything, including feces of anything. And as a person, you think, good God, like what? But the pig is totally happy. Pig's like, this is what I do. And so my mom always, she kind of tends to throw that line in. She's like, see, there's a body for everything. I'm like, oh, Mom. Sometimes I'm like, just let me enjoy my, let me have my side life where I don't think about it. And she's like, no, there's a body for every desire. I'm like, Mom.
Yeah.
But on to, no eternal damnation. Do we have time for like a quick 2-minute story? I want to see how quick I can tell this story.
Well, Acyuta, I already said it. The more we talk about random stuff as we go through this, the more you come back. Talk
I
away.
swear, I feel like it all ties in. It'll tie in.
Yeah. There's
So,
no time limit.
Origin stories and all. This like bhakti crash course 101, right? So Krishna, as supreme person, was kind of like roaming through so many different realms. He finds himself in the lower planetary systems, which have a lot of things in them. They have some really cool looking places, some really nice looking places, and some not so great places. He goes to the superintendent, who's known as Yamaraj, and he arrives at like his palace. Now, Yamaraj has like, his home palace, and then he's got like the office. In the office, big court, kind of stern, bare looking, because it's at the gates of all of the hellish places. But he comes to like, Yamaraj's his home palace. And Yamaraj thinks, he's like, oh my gosh, my lord, you're here. Nobody ever comes and visits me. But now my favorite person is here. What can I do for you? And so they say that Krishna begins to kind of like talk to him, but then he keeps getting interrupted. He's like, Krishna's like, I keep hearing like this wailing sound. Like, what is that? And Yamaraj's like, well, that's from the office side. You put me in charge of taking care of the people, and they've done the things, so got to do what I got to do. And Krishna's like, my goodness, that's awful. When does it end? And he's like, it doesn't. It's like, what do you mean it doesn't? It's like, you didn't give me a stop time. It's just they've got to like suffer out the reactions, and some of these reactions are kind of long and involved. And so our Vedas say that Krishna has this moment of like this crushing compassion in his heart where he's like, that can't be. Like, I can't fathom that this would never end. And from that moment of compassion, a goddess emerges from his body. And this goddess looks at him. She's beautiful, effulgent. She's got a shield and sword and a chakra and all kinds of stuff. And she says, what can I do for you? He says, what can you do? I was just feeling compassionate. I didn't even think I was calling forth anybody. What do you think you can do for me? She's like, well, let all those you are feeling compassionate for honor me on this day. And if they honor me on this day, I'll take care of everything else. Everything else that they were dealing with, all the sinful reactions, will be completely eradicated. Let that be my boon. He says, so be it. And since you appeared on the 11th day of our lunar cycle, I name you Ekadashi. You will be my favorite person. So this is just one of the origin stories for Ekadashi Devi. I say this because Ekadashi's coming up. Born out of the incredible compassion that Krishna feels, hearing the wailing while he's at the gates of the hellish planets, but it's still not done. Then comes this horribly disfigured looking person, kind of like limping, like you ever see like Igor and those like Frankenstein movies,
Yeah.
So he kind of, he's like really like malformed and misshapen. And he comes and he says, but oh my Lord, I'm also a part of you. And so Krishna's like, well, but who are you? He's like, I'm Papa Purusha. He's like, I'm the personified form of all the sinful reactions. And I also come from you. So you have to give me shelter somewhere. And so Krishna thinks and he says, well, fine. On the day of Ekadashi, when everybody is atoning and leaving wholesale from all the hellish planets and getting free from all sinful reactions, he says, you can reside in grains. And so this is why they say that Gaudiyas don't eat grains or beans on Ekadashi. Because they say that Krishna has given Papa Purusha that place to maintain himself. Because he's like, where am I going to stay? If everybody's getting freed from all their hellish reactions and sinful reactions, I am the personified sinful reactions. What do? You have to give me shelter. He says, fine. You can reside in grains on that day. So that's why they say that Vaishnavas, we fast from grains and beans. And also on days when we honor our Ishtadevs. So even during Durga Puja, you'll see that many people will do an Ekadashi fast. They'll do a fast from grains and whatnot, because oftentimes when these incredibly spiritually potent days come, this Papa Purusha, this sin personified, has nowhere else to go. They say he takes shelter over there. And it's such a small tapasya, but we tend to make such a big deal out of it. But really, this is coming from the compassionate heart of our Supreme Person. Compassionate not only to hellish people, compassionate to the goddess that emerges from his body, and then compassionate to sin personified, who he says, fine, you also come from me. Krishna doesn't leave anybody behind. No one is forgotten, not even sin personified. I can guarantee you none of us are as sinful as all sin personified. And if Krishna can have compassion on them, then there's a place for all of us.
I love that story. I am reflecting on all the Ekadasis that I have failed to follow properly and regretting my life.
What is life?
But I'm glad that you finished that sentence the way you did. That there's still space for me. Krishna still has space for me. That was a really
kind of good
story, though.
Because Krishna having space for us, kind of, it's still it's a lead in to when we go into to text 5 and 6,
which we should do.
That's right. So okay. Next text.
Yeah. Oh, I just feel bad. We've just been joined by dear Sonam Shana. Sharma, nice to see you. So, you know Sonam?
I do.
She regretfully was in the wrong place, it seems, was refreshing Instagram, waiting for us to show up. However, we were not there. So apologies for not being there, but nice to see you now.
Definitely.
Okay.
So text 5, yeah. And whoever at the time of death quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. And I have like a really, really old translation, so don't be freaked out if it sounds slightly different.
No, I have the same one.
Okay, good.
I have the old one too.
So yeah, like that first line of that purport in this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Like now we get to the, like you said, like really the meat of like, why are we doing any and all of this? Why are we doing this? But I kind of love it because Krishna has spent a fair amount of time describing where people go. If you meditate on the demigods, you go here. Even if you're an atheist, you go here, you do this, you do that. And Arjuna's like, well, what, like what's happening? And so I feel like these are all moments of like solace, moments of where he's like, don't worry. And whoever at the time of death quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. No doubt. Like there's no doubts about it. Like you don't have to double back. You don't have to like, oh, is he going to really come through with this promise? He's like, I got you already. Don't worry about it. And they talk about how remembrance has to occur. And I was kind of thinking about all the songs that get stuck in my head. And like there was just this whole week, there was one that was just so insidious and I could not get it out of my head. And I was like, this is so ridiculous. And finally, I had to go and change the chorus to like a Maha Mantra because I was like, I refuse. Because I feel like it would be me. Like it like end of my life. Like I've been practicing. I'm so close. And then all of a sudden, there's like some weird Justin Bieber song is stuck in your head. And messes Justin up the Bieber. Whole thing.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I got to change it. I got to do something. And funny enough, when I changed the lyrics to Maha Mantra, it kind of cleared out whatever was stuck in my head. And now I don't even remember how I did it or what I did. I just remember that I was like, oh, Maha Mantra was the last thing I remember. I was like, it works.
Yeah, I have that happen to me all the time and it's really annoying. I'm totally that dude who gets a little phrase of a song, probably Justin Bieber too. And I'll just randomly, continuously, frustratingly,
yeah,
keep coming out with it. So I feel
and but once again, there's always that ability to dovetail, which
Yeah.
comes in later. But this ability to dovetail, even we talk about in that purport, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is mentioned.
Yeah.
And there's a famous story where Lord Chaitanya is at a huge festival, right? This Rath Yatra festival, this festival of the carts, where now Lord of the universe, Jagannath Krishna, is normally in the temple. Now he comes out of the temple. If you've been at any ISKCON festival, kind of looks just like that. We got carts, we go down a main road, everybody comes out and pulls God onto the streets. And so Sri Chaitanya, who is Krishna himself, basically, he's standing in front of this form of Lord Krishna. And what does he say when he prays to himself? He's looking at Krishna thinking, okay, you're the same person. I'm the same person. We had a loving relationship a long time ago. And now I'm seeing you again, but it looks different. And how they describe that is those were actually the lyrics to just a Bengali folk song. Wasn't spiritual, wasn't anything. It was just a random song, which is kind of like, if we take it and put it in modern context, it's like the equivalent of you getting there at a Rath Yatra festival and just having Justin Bieber stuck in your head. And it just so happens that the lyrics do fit. Because, when you're thinking about that person who really, really, all you can really give all that love to, the only person you can really give all that love to is Krishna. And these lyrics come flying out. And then, eventually what happens is Lord Chaitanya's crew and his followers, they kind of Vaishnavize the lyrics. They write another set of poetry, same mood, but spoken from the gopis to Krishna. In essence, taking this Bengali folk song and kind of weaving it back in, because everybody was super confused. When they heard Sri Chaitanya speak it, everybody's just like, say what? No, because really it's like the equivalent of like any random song. And then you get in front of God and you're like singing Bruno Mars, like leave the door open. It's like, what's happening with you? How's this happening? But I kind of like, this is the essence. This is like the rawest form of dovetail, which just goes to show it's like, Krishna's like, for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I'm never lost. And that's the goal. If we can try and see Krishna in every single thing, he will absolutely make up the difference.
Yeah.
He'll make it all make sense.
But my parents, when we were young, they must have had this problem where they'd heard songs and it got stuck in their heads. And so they Krishna-ized them. And so we would Krishna-ize. I remember we Krishna-ized, what was it? That R. Kelly song, I Believe I Can Fly. and it was, we had all the lyrics, and we would sing it all the time, but we would sing our Krishna-ized version. I feel I could do it, but awesome. I'm shy to do it in a cappella right here, right now for you all. But you can probably not going to do that ever. You can ask, maybe, let's see.
But you can really see, like, if you try, like me and my family, we play a game like 6 degrees of separation. Like, we'll hear a song. It's like, okay, can you relate this song back to Krishna or a pastime? Yeah. Like, how do you relate this back? And it's the exact thing, like same thing. Where there's a will, there's a way. And that's what essentially Krishna is saying. If you see everything in me and me in everything, I'm never lost. Where there's a will, there's a way. If you want 6 degrees of separation, we will find it. Like, if you can try hard enough. And so that's Krishna's like, if you want to try hard enough to remember me, I promise you, I'll be there with you every step of the way. And this emphasis on remembrance, and just something as simple as remembrance, because just thinking of somebody, like, sometimes we think, okay, if I'm going to chant, that takes time and effort. I got to go and get beads. I got to move them the right way. I got to sit in the right way. I got to sit down for 2 hours or however long it's going to take. But remembrance doesn't take anything. Just remembering, oh, wait, Krishna, and that's my friend. And he also happens to be God, but mostly he's my friend. That doesn't take anything. It doesn't take any change of environment. It doesn't take any funds. It doesn't take any change of clothing. And as we'll see, Krishna says exactly the same thing. Like, you don't have to change anything. Just add Krishna and watch how Krishna makes sense of all the rest of it.
Yeah. So this is beautiful because it's simplifying. It's just keeping it super simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to change what you're doing in life. You just dovetail the things that you're currently doing, whether it's listening to Justin Bieber songs, whether it's going to work, whether it's whatever you may do. And even in one of the next verses we see, he says to Arjuna, he doesn't say to Arjuna, go to the forest. He says, continue doing what you should be doing. Do your work, but just do it as an offering to me. Think of me whilst you do it. And this is all training us for what this verse is telling us, verses 5 and 6. For the ultimate test of our life. The ultimate test of our life is when we quit this body.
Yeah.
And if we've practiced our whole life, like you're saying, just in those moments, as often as we can, to remember Krishna as best as we can, whether it be dovetailing a song that we've heard, Krishna Eyesing it, or whatever it may be, whether it's studying, whether it's chanting. Actually, in the purport here,
yeah,
Prabhupada explains this is why it's so important that we chant Hare Krishna, the Mahamantra, which here at Kirtan London we love to do, because it's helping us to continually practice remembering. And why is this remembering so important? It's because of this moment. At this time of death, what we think of is where we'll go next. It all ties in. This is what's so beautiful about the Krishna conscious or the bhakti or the Vedic perspective, is that as you start to understand the bigger picture, it flows so beautifully together. It makes sense. Karma, reincarnation, our actions have reactions. What we think about at the time of death guides to where we go next. Therefore, what we're doing with our time during our life is what we'll think about at the time of death. So it makes a lot of sense. And doesn't have to be so difficult, like you're saying.
Yeah.
In fact, it can be really fun.
Yeah. And so, and just for reading's sake, so that we can cover text 6, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Yeah. And then we hear about a Maharaj Bharat who thought of a deer and then became a deer. And, conversely, on the other side, there's a great king named Kulashekar who wrote Mukunda Mala Stotra, which is beautiful. And Srila Prabhupada would actually love to sing those verses. But in one of those verses, this king, Kulashekar, he's like, you know what? Maybe Lord, take me now. I don't know what's going to happen at the end of my life. Like, I might get choked up. I might forget. I don't know. But right now, right here, right now, we're in a good place. Maybe we should just take me quit while I'm ahead. Take me now. And that, kind of seems like a very intense stance to take, right? Nobody's ever really ready to be like, you know what, take me now. I'm done. Can't do it. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But we are often very worried about it. It's in the back of our minds. I know at least it is for me, and it has been for most of my life. I remember when I was little, kind of really thinking and wondering, like, you hear all these different faiths, you see all these different people. And I used to sit and wonder, of course, it was always like right before bed, so then you can never sleep. But I used to sit and wonder, like, what if everybody's wrong? What if everybody's wrong? And then it took me watching like Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj passing away to see the faith that he had courageously to say, no, we're not wrong. I've seen it. I'm like straddling right now. The lines are blurred. I could see across the veil. We are not wrong. Like he believed in this Krishna consciousness thing till the very last breath he took. And watching that, I think, was such a transformative point for me, where I remember honestly thinking, no, okay, yeah, I can go all in with this Krishna stuff now. Like, cool. I never wondered about it again.
Wow.
Being able to see somebody that courageous at that moment of surrender, really looking at it, and there was no fear, no nothing. And this man had tumors everywhere, but no fear. Person who would say, I wouldn't trade my position for anything. Being able to look at that person and that person be able to look you in the eyes and go, no, you're on the right track. Just keep going with what you know is true. That for me sealed the deal. Like I was like, okay, me and Krishna, we like this forever.
I hear this and I reflect. It's making me feel a little frustrated at myself that I don't take this more seriously, that I don't go 100% in, because it's the same. I feel that same, at least mentally, intellectually, acknowledgement that this is truth, this is reality, and yet I see myself holding back on my 100% dedication to following the practice and being steady and all in. I can, like you said, I can go all in with this now. No more doubts. I don't doubt it intellectually, but I see that there is doubt, because otherwise, why am I not all in on it? Why do I still waste time watching YouTube? Why do I still?
Yeah, and you know, I mean, like, yeah, and like you said, it is an intellectual leap first, and the mind will throw so many doubts at you. So it's not, you know, while that moment of surrender was like, okay, cool, I don't have any doubts about Krishna. You know, the acting on it is like it's a daily pep talk. It's a moment by moment pep talk. It's that moment pep talk where I'm like, I could chant, or I could do something else, or I could like, and you know, with me being able, I have a really good knack for being able to justify anything, which is so bad with procrastination, because I'll justify it spiritually. I'm like, no, it's not procrastination. This is research. I'm like, for what? Come on now, let's be real. So I'll find a way to, like, you know, justify my illusory tendencies. But yeah, I've been trying to recently, especially this whole week, I've been trying to like remind myself, like, but if this was medicine and the doctor gave me a prescription, how would I treat it? Like, I'd probably be like, I'd have timers set in my phone. I'd have all this stuff. Like, you know, if they were like, okay, listen, you've got a horrible disease and this is the only cure. We're going to write you this prescription. If you take it, you're good to go. I'd be on it. So I've been trying to remind myself to, like, I'm like, okay, Acyuta, take your medicine. Like, don't sit there and delude yourself into thinking, yeah, I could chant later. Because that's kind of where it always starts. I've got time. What's the worst that could happen? And I've seen it. Like, the worst that could happen is your mind gets a hold of you. And when that happens, it's terrible. It's so terrible. It's the difference between, like, you know, wonderful lifestyle and a hellish lifestyle. You know, like they often say, like, even Shakespeare, it's like heaven and earth, hell can all just be up here. It's all a state of mind and how we are able to live through it, which is exactly, it's like the things that we focus on, which is exactly what Krishna is telling Arjuna. What you focus on, that's where your energy is going to go. Where you put all of that, that's what's going to happen. That's what will manifest. That's where you'll go at the end of this life. That's what you're going to create for this life and the next. So recently I've been having a conversation that I didn't even want to have with a lot of people who've been like, yeah, but you know, this is my problem with this, and this is my problem with this. And I'm like, yo, why, like, what's our fascination with focusing on this is my problem with this? Like, the more energy we put into looking at this is my problem with this, the more that's going to manifest. And I can't. I'm at a point where I'm like, I've got to focus on, okay, what do I want? What do I want? I've looked at people with a whole bunch of cars, wealth, money, whatever, it doesn't matter. and they've said, what do I want? They're like, I want what you've got. You've got a spiritual thing, and I need to find out what that is. And I'm like, yo, really? Wow, okay. And it's not because somebody who has a lot of money said it, but really it's Krishna reminding me. He's like, don't get sidetracked, best friend. Like, remember, we had this. We're here. We've got it. And it's the same thing he's telling to Arjuna. He's like, don't get sidetracked, best friend. All these things that you think people are going to say about you, all these things that you think you don't have, all the strength that you think you don't have to go through this, we're here together. I got you, and we're in this together. That verse, many, many births, both you and I have passed. I can remember them all, but you have not, is one of my favorites, because there's nothing that Krishna has not seen about me. And he remembers. He's got the long memory. I don't even remember all of the atrocious, obnoxious things that I have been or that I have done. He remembers, and yet and still he's like, I'm still here, choosing you, right here with you, Paramatma, seated right there. Every time he says, I'm there as the witness, as the guide, as everything. That's not a condemnation, right? And sometimes we think about it because, our guilt gets the better of us. We hear witness and we're like, oh God, what did he see? But he's saying, I'm here as the witness. Like, no, but I'm still here. I've been witnessing everything, ups, downs, in betweens. I'm still here. So never, ever, ever are we alone. Never has he abandoned us. And that in and of itself is enough to make me want to focus on what I do want, to make me want to not get sidetracked, and remind myself moment by moment every day, like, okay, wait. But we don't want to get sidetracked, because I bet you we've been down this road before. I bet you we've been there, seen it, been there, done it, bought the t-shirt, and it sucked. And now we're here. And once again, Krishna's like, don't get sidetracked, best friend. Just come back.
Telling you, here hosting this podcast with the hope of trying to share something that I love and hopefully help other people. And I'm telling you, I'm receiving everything here. I feel like this podcast was designed for me to hear so that I could sort my life out. So if I'm taking that much away from it, I know that what you're saying is definitely helping others as well. In fact, Manjari is just coming in with a really beautiful comment. We all have moments of loss of focus, but it is these moments that reset us. We can't change the past, but we can keep the future in focus. Acyuta is like my spiritual prescription glasses. Yeah, I feel you, Manjari. I feel you. I'm hearing that.
Small and pocket-sized.
Yeah. It's this is our, I feel like these two verses are so important. I'm sure all of the verses are important, but these two verses, 5 and 6, right now for me, I'm seeing them, I'm feeling like it's, if we can grasp this and take this seriously, then we're on to a winner. Because it's, we forget that we live our life as though we're never going to die.
Yeah.
That's why I waste my time, because I feel as though I have time to waste. In my head, the way I live my life is, I'll do it later. But we don't know if later will come. And if I don't put my time right now and invest it into what's going to be most beneficial for me, when later does come, when my time to go comes, if I haven't prepared for that, then I'm not going to be able to have any influence on where I go next. And then I'm just succumb to whatever my karma, whatever good and bad things I've done, I have to go and just continue in this cycle. We call it samsara, the cycle of birth and death. It goes on and on and on, like you're saying. And Krishna's there like, yo, you've done this. Don't get sidetracked. And this is a really important point for us to conceptualize. I had a near-death experience once, and I realized how far away from this whole thing I really was. I fell off a cliff on a holiday in Greece. It was a legit 7-meter fall straight down, legit 7 meters. And I was extremely fortunate. On one side of me so I landed, luckily I landed on the ground, and then I fell on my side into a bush. Just to the left of me was a huge rock. Just to the right of me was a broken, thin tree stump that could have impaled me. And if I'd have fallen 20 meters down the road, it would have been 100-foot drop. It was so genuinely near death. I was stunned. It somewhat stunned me, knocked me out. I thought I broke my back. First thing, as I was able to speak after a short period of time, I was there stunned. First thing I shouted to my friends who were up there, I think I broke my back. It's the first thing I said. Scared the crap out of them.
Oh my God.
And do you want to know what I was thinking whilst I was falling?
Yes.
Shit, when am I going to hit the floor? I wasn't thinking about Krishna. I was genuinely thinking, man, I'm falling for a long time here. What's happening? Damn, when am I going to hit the floor? And what was so weird was, for 2 to 3 days, my mortality was so clear in my head. My mortality was so there that, wow, I could go at any second. You just don't know when you're going to go. And what's weird is 2 to 3 days later, that clarity of my mortality started to wear off. And I fell back into my stupor that I live my daily life with, which is I have time to waste. And these verses are making it very clear that how we utilize our time during our life is how we will leave this body at the time of death. And so let's use this time wisely. Let's invest this time wisely. If we want to be able to have any influence in a positive way in our future direction, we have to use this time wisely.
And you perfectly, that there was a line in the purport text 6 that I just made a note by. It's like, of course, the cumulative effect of the thoughts and actions of one's life influences one's thoughts at the moment of death. So that's like that whole thing, your life flashes before your eyes, all this thing. Mortality is real raw, like I've seen that some things can happen to me. And then slowly but surely it fades away. And it has to. In order for us to kind of keep living, it has to.
Yeah.
And I feel like people who have kind of like gone off the deep end and they look crazy to society, I always kind of look and I just see, I'm like, no, that I don't think that that's crazy. I feel like there was some realization that has sparked this, and either it now becomes impossible to function in this mortal world, knowing all this stuff, like at any point anything could happen, or the other way, like, there's 2 ways that this could go. There's the fear-induced crazy, and then there's the love-induced crazy. So either way, there's a crazy that can happen, and it becomes impossible to function either in love, so much in ecstasy that you're like, you know what? I don't know what's going on in this other plane, but there's something amazing over there. I'm going to go check that out. Okay. I'll see you guys later. Or there's, I was talking to my brother about this one time. I was like, imagine getting a taste of all of this divine nature, right? We have an idea of what to call it, who to call it, what form it has, right? We have this idea Krishna has all of these opulences, and we understand that as parts and parcels, we might have access to those opulences of Krishna. Now imagine getting a taste of those opulences, getting a taste of all that, and not having any Krishna to catch you. That sometimes is what I think is what happens when you've got creatives, and then it looks like the creative just goes crazy. I feel like, no, there's a cliff that happens, and you look at all these things and you're like, hey, it looks like there's something cool over there. What's that? And when there's no philosophy to catch you, it's an abyss of who knows what. It's like all jumbled up. But Srila Prabhupada, he would say that habit actually means practice. So we practice. And he gave us rules and regulations and steps and formulas because you need those to not be a level jumper, to not just kind of go all in without any aim. But it helps us. It helps us to take the plunge as systematically as possible. Like, you get those like ice water plunges, you like do a full workout, then you go in a sauna, and then you go in an ice plunge, but you're supposed to kind of do it under supervision first so that you don't like shock yourself into fainting and like breaking your jaw and all kinds of stuff. So it's the same thing with spirituality. There's going to be a whole bunch of amazing things that are going to happen. Some of them will feel energized. Some of them will feel buzzing. Some of them will feel like, whoa, it drudged up a whole bunch of things that I didn't really want to see. But we do it under supervision. Because without it, there's a whole other, like once that veil is moved, there's a whole 3/4 of a whole creation, right? What we've got here in this world that we still can't figure out is still just like 1/4 of this whole 4 pieces of pie. There's a whole 3/4 of a creation that we can't even conceive of. Once that veil gets moved, if we don't have a systematic way of approaching things, if we don't have this, if we don't have a Bhagavad Gita that says, and a Krishna that says, hold on now, okay, let me simplify it for you, because there's a lot that's going on, we can get so easily lost. And so I appreciate so much that we have a Krishna and we have spiritual teachers who are willing to sit here and dumb it down for me, because I need it. And then I have to go and like make it simpler for my brain. Because even still, my brain's like, say what now? What? And then Krishna's like, let me help you out. But don't get sidetracked. Like, we got this. So I'm super, super grateful. And like you said, how is it that we can come so close to those final moments? And then a few days later, it's like, well, back to business as usual. But that's the nature of this place. It happens with babies, which is why, sometimes people are like, why don't we remember our past lives? My spiritual master one time, he was like, do you know, somebody asked him that question at the end of a lecture. He's like, do you know how traumatized you'd be if you could remember all the lives and all the things and all of the injustices and all of the atrocities that were both done to you and that you committed? It's like, do you know how traumatized you'd be? Just to live, we have to forget. Just to be able to function. Like, no one would be able to function with all of the weight of that on their spiritual shoulders.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a coping mechanism built into these bodies that we have to be able to somehow function. And why? Because we decided that we wanted to be bosses.
Yeah, it's a blessing. It's a blessing that we can't remember everything. Although there are examples of people who can remember snippets of things from their previous lives.
Yeah.
You can research it. In fact, there are documented children who are able to perfectly recall things that they should have no idea about. They understand that they relate to people who existed years ago, and they can say, quote, facts about certain things and certain people and names that how would they ever know?
Some of them are even, within the ISKCON movement, which is kind of cool. Like, I love mystical things like that.
Yeah. I know of at least 1 or 2 within the ISKCON movement that
remember
their past life, or remember at least snippets from their past life.
Which is super awesome. I mean, and it just goes to show that everything that Krishna is saying is kind of true. Like, it's like, don't just take my word for it. Like, not that he needed an endorsement, but, sometimes modern brains can go, it's a little difficult to believe. Like, is this really a thing? Which, this whole remembering and not remembering, it leads into that, question. Somebody said, just out of curiosity, what has Krishna managed for the atheists? And he said it himself. He's like, I'll give you whatever you want. Like, he's such an amazingly beautiful, loving personality that, along with the free will that gave us the opportunity to completely forget him, he's like, I'll also give you whatever you want. If you wanna say that I don't exist, I'll be invisible. He's literally going to reciprocate exactly how we approach. And so if you want to say there is no God, he will give you every proof that you're right, which is astounding to me, that somebody would love you so much that they would even help you deny their entire existence because you've decided that that's what makes you happy.
It is astounding. Thank you for answering that as well. I believe that was the only question that came in on YouTube so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciated how you were sharing earlier as well. I appreciate you say so much. It's hard for me. It's hard for me to pick up on all of it. So I'll just, but just to say that I really am appreciating all the points being shared so much. I really am. Lots of fantastic jewel-like points being raised. And I wanted to come back and touch on what you were saying about how when you saw this spiritual teacher, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, who was a guru within the ISKCON Krishna Conscious Society, how when you saw him leave his body and the state of mind that he was in when he left his body, how much faith that gave you. Because again, and this is something that we don't think about leaving our body much until someone leaves their body.
Yeah.
and then we're forced to think about it, and it's horrible and it's sad and it's devastating. And when someone is in that process of leaving their body, I saw it with my uncle. There's so much fear. There's so much fear. People are terrified. We are terrified of death. We're terrified of it. And when you see someone who can confront death valiantly, fearlessly, whilst maintaining all composure, whilst maintaining full,
exactly like that. And it's not even like confronting, it's like running head first, like, come at me, let's go.
willingly. And it's so powerful. It's such a powerful thing to witness, because it shows you might, for example, you might be able to fake it throughout your life, but when death is coming, all of your pretenses are dropped. You can't fake stuff anymore. All you have is what's true to you, what's real to you. And so if someone is able to be so courageous in those moments, it's because they have something real. That person has something real, which they are seeing that we're not seeing. And so if we want to see that, because the same test is coming for us, that they, in that moment, are passing with flying colors. If we want to get to that stage, then we gotta do the same things. Got to follow the process, like you said. Prabhupada, the author of this Bhagavad Gita that we're reading, he was another example of that. His last breath. There's videos of his last moments of life, and to his last breath, he was still sharing compassionately, trying to help the people who were coming to him for guidance. He was still trying to help them. He wasn't saying, save me.
Yeah. Nor was he saying, nor was he like, and it wasn't even just like, do you see where I am? You're going to ask me a question now. No, he wanted to preach. He wanted to talk about it. And that kind of hunger can only come from actually really tasting it, like, you know, really diving in. And I kind of felt like, I was like, well, you know, I feel like you don't get wet unless you actually jump in. You know, you can't get wet unless you jump in the ocean. And so I kind of felt like from then I was like, well, maybe if this is an adventure, then maybe we just jump in and see how it goes. And, you know, take it one day at a time, but we'll see how it goes. And if it's not going so well, we'll reassess. And if it's going great, then we'll dive in some more and just we'll see what happens. And this Bhagavad Gita, doesn't matter how many times I read it, doesn't matter how many times it's been in my life. I have some that I wrote my name in when I was like 7, you know, and even till now, I'm like still reading these verses and everything is completely different. Every single moment of life, it's completely different. There's something new, there's something fresh, there's a realization that I never had before. I've read this chapter so many times and it doesn't matter. It's still like, huh, was that in there? Look at that. And the more effort I put into getting to know Krishna, the more I feel like he's really like, okay, watch, I'm gonna show you something. Watch, this is gonna be really cool. And I feel like the more faith I have in him being this awesome personality, the more awesome he is, which just goes to show, like, yeah, you aren't a liar. You're reciprocating. Like, you're such a reciprocator. He's like, oh, you have no idea. Like, it's like this person's just been waiting, just waiting. This is the one thing I was waiting for. That's it. I just wanted you to turn to me and say, hey, you know, I'm kind of starting to remember, like, I think we knew each other. It's like, oh my God, that's all I needed to hear. Yes, we did. You want to know how much we knew each other? Let me tell you. And he'll take over the rest. Like, you know, we talk about it if we think about dying or whether we don't think about dying. But also there's this idea of like, have we done enough? When is enough enough? Do we need to get to the moment of death to know it's enough or no? And I love that I have a friend who just says, look, in this endeavor, there's no loss. There's no lessening. You just win. He's like, I'll even take care of the rest. Even if you've remembered me just a little bit, I'll never let you go. And I've seen it time and time again. I've seen it from people who hate the institution and still can't say they hate Krishna. And it makes me remember every single time. There's a verse in Varaha Purana and they say, you know, they pose this question, like, what happens if somebody can't remember Krishna at the time of death? Because now he's got, just think of me at the time of death, no problem. But what happens if you can't, but you've been a devotee, what happens? And the response from Krishna is, then I'll remember him or her or them. It's just so simple for my person. It's so simple. Like, doesn't even bat an eye, you know? My spring person's like, don't worry, I'll carry the rest. Cool. So like when we think, you know, have I done enough? Is it enough? In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. All the rest of this is just fun adventure. And it's the best adventure of my entire life.
You're an inspiring person, Acyuta.
That was my ad for Japa.
You are. You're inspiring me. Well, we've been true to our form so far. We've gone through 2 verses.
No, we did 3. 5, 6, 7.
Oh, yeah, we've gone to 7 as well?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Oh, all right.
Because you even put that one a little bit early. Like, you should always think of me and carry out your prescribed duty of fighting with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me. Don't worry, I'll take care of the rest. Like, he's like, listen, just do your thing, live your life, think about me. I got you.
A lot of great stuff, a lot of good stuff in today's talk, Acyuta. Japa adds, yeah. I'm really taking this powerfully for myself and praying that I'm able to act on it even just a little bit more daily in my own life, because right now in this moment, it's hitting me, the power of what we're talking about, and the importance of it, and just how freaking awesome Krishna is. That this is actually something that, one reason I say you're inspiring me is because I love how epic Krishna is to you. Krishna is so awesome. And because we can sometimes approach spirituality from a place of fear. I need to do this because if I don't, I'm going to suffer that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I hear from you is, I want to do this because Krishna is so epic. And I've hung out with some other cool people who have had similar vibes, and I really took a lot of inspiration hanging out with them as well. And when I'm able to come to my spiritual life from this perspective of, wow, despite life after life after life after life of screwing up, just eternally, I'm eternally a screw up, eternally. Okay, that's maybe being a little harsh, but that's why we're still here, because we have eternally, continually turned away from Krishna, our best friend. Nonetheless, despite all of the things I've done, he's right here with me, waiting, just waiting for that moment when we say, all right, I want to be a friend. He's there. And it's so wonderful. And whenever I've approached my spirituality from that, you could say, more positive angle rather than the fear angle, I find myself way more inspired. And I love that you come with that energy, such a powerful energy of positivity with your spiritual life. It's very inspiring. It's very attractive. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, thank you. And, I feel like every time I enter into one of these, I have an idea of how it's going to go. And then somewhere in the middle, I'm like, wait, but do you know how cool he is? Look at this. Wait, one second. Okay. Oh my God. I just want to say, but and really that, like you said, that propels me more than fear. Because at a certain point, my stubborn nature, it's like, okay, don't do that. And I'm like, well, even if I didn't want to do it, I'm not going to do it because you told me not to do it. Gosh. But yeah, when I approach it as this friend, this companion, this love interest, there's a person that is literally just waiting all day. It makes it so much easier, even if it's midnight, even if I'm dead tired, to just say, I can chant one round. Maybe it's not a full 16, but I can chant one, because my friend was waiting around by the phone all day. And I know how that feels. I know how it feels. And just writing it out every day, thinking about life, thinking about what we go through, and how many times I call on my friend to fix things in my life, from parking spots to green lights at traffic stop, like whatever it is. I'm always like, oh, could you help? Can you help? Oh my God, the post office is closing. Can you help? And then there's all these things. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, great, cool. Good talk. See you later. Like, and all this person wanted to do was just talk to me, not for any reason. There is absolutely nothing that Krishna wants from me. Like, he's not asking me to help him fix his traffic lights. He's not asking me to help him make miracles in his life. He's never going, help, can you help me? He's always just like, hey, I just wanted to see how you were. Can you, like, that would make me feel really awesome if you told me how you were feeling. Like, dang, I don't know anybody that's selfless like that. And man, yeah, he's just the coolest. He's the coolest. That's my guy.
Krishna. Well, I don't see any more questions.
Cool.
I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to finish on before we wrap up today. Otherwise,
I think we've got it. Nobody gets left behind. Nobody gets forgotten. We're all doing enough. Just do the best you can. Krishna's not waiting to smite you anymore. Like he sees that.
Yes. This is actually an interesting point. Generally, this is an interesting point of reflection, perhaps. I wonder what you think about this, Acyuta, but if you find yourself being led by something, whether it be an institution, a person, whatever it is, a religion, and you're primarily being led fear-based, there's perhaps something that's not going quite right in that scenario. Versus the idea is, as far as I can see and what I've experienced, is that it should be being love-led rather than fear-led. That's the idea. Mm-hmm. Too many of us are fear-led.
And, while we say so many of us, what I kind of love is that every example of prophets, saints, they all find themselves inching away from a situation that was fear-led. I mean, you can't get any more graphic than Jesus. That man. Okay, that man. He did the things. And, moving from a place where they're like, no, you can't do this. You can't do this. He's like, I don't know what to tell you. There was a vision. I feel it. I've communed with the Lord. All I can tell you is what's overflowing from the heart. And every single prophet and saint, you get Hafiz, you get Rumi, you get Mirabai, you have saints, different traditions, different parts of the world. And they have these things in common, that they start moving away from this situation that is fear-based. And they're like, I don't know what to tell you. All I can tell you is what's overflowing from here. And what's overflowing from here is such an abundance of love and acceptance and inclusivity. I don't know what to tell you except for this is made for everybody. And everybody in whatever institution has a problem with that, they're like, but it can't be made for everybody. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Haridas Thakur, all the same, everybody. They're like, I don't know what to tell you. All I know is what's coming from here. And what's coming from here is this overwhelming need, this overwhelming flow of love and inclusivity and acceptance is coming for everybody. Yeah. Just saying, listen, look, I found something that is working wonders for me. And I have to tell you about it because I'm so excited about what my friend is like. Whether my friend is addressed as male, female, neither, both, all of the above. I have to tell you about my friend. And so I feel like that's kind of the way of spirituality as a whole. We have to be led by what's overflowing from here. And so in order for it to be overflowing, we gotta drop in and actually find out what's happening in there.
I find this when you dive into the work of any saint, we tend to see that there's a leaning away from sectarianism. And when you speak to people who are newer to this, the word neophyte, right? That's the word. Yeah. You see a lot more of that sectarian mentality. I'm right, you're wrong. And it doesn't matter what tradition I've seen or come across, when you start seeing the saints of those traditions and the way that they talk and express their relationship with their spiritual life, it's inclusive. It's not sectarian.
Yeah.
But as humans, we become so sectarian that even within one movement, following one prophet, people start to create sects.
Yeah.
We're this, you're that, we don't like you. Mm-hmm. And we're all still technically following Jesus or following Krishna or whatever it may be, right? Because it's human mentality from the lower level of consciousness.
Yeah, it's, basically what happens is we are saying the same things in different languages and getting caught up on the word jugglery and the syntax.
Yeah.
And everybody's saying it's like, no, but 3 + 1. And they're like, yeah, 2 + 2. you're like, but 3 plus 1, it's like 2 plus 2. And we're not kind of listening to that everybody is saying 4. We're kind of getting caught up on the how do we get there, and I what I see with all the saints is what happens is they hear about the path and they say, yo, what, really? 3 plus 1? You found that? Like, what else did you find? Like, they get intrigued and excited, like, you found a 2 to the second power. Like, what's happening? How'd you get that? Everybody is pretty much having a big powwow with this divine love and ecstasy. And we're over here fighting.
Yeah, we're down here like, no, there, 2 plus 2.
Right, 2 plus 2. They're like, yo, you found a 3 plus 1. What else did they find?
Yeah.
Who else found what?
And what did my brother over there find? You say my brother over there saw 7 minus 3?
Yeah. Hey.
And I wasn't even confident I got that right.
Yeah, and even even Mirabai, I mean, you think it doesn't happen between Vaishnavas, but of course it does. Mirabai went to see one of the 6 Goswamis and she gets there. And usually they say it's their attendants, their servants. And they said, oh, who are you? And she says, oh, please tell your master that I heard that my Lord is now golden, and I've heard that you've seen him. Mirabai was a great Krishna devotee, but she's now heard that there have been sightings of Sri Chaitanya. She's like, I've heard, I want to find out. And, the attendant's like, but, you're a woman. You have no place here. And she's like, but I thought in the highest regard, we were all meant to be enjoyed by that one supreme male. So I thought we were all kind of women. She's like, no matter. It's okay. I'll leave. And when the Goswami hears, he like runs out. He's like, whoa, what are you doing? Wait, come back. She's like, no, it's okay. It's fine. Like, it's okay. I heard what I came for. Like, he's like, no. And she does wind up writing her poetry later about Sri Chaitanya. Like, I've heard of the golden Lord. Like, I've heard that he's made his appearance, like all these things. But, we can see that it happens even with the saints. There are misunderstandings. It's like when people get together, there's going to be conflict and quarrel and misunderstandings. It's like, it's the nature of this place. But I hope that we can keep fighting through those and putting on our blue colored glasses, right? Our Krishna colored lenses and trying to see through those misunderstandings to try and see that, okay, we're all trying to make our way back to 4. That's it.
That's it. Raphael says one thing he's noticed about saints is that every tradition loves them. So he's seen Muslims quoting St. Francis and Christians quoting Rumi. Saints fit in with everyone. That's right, exactly. Saints fit in with everyone. Why? Because they be functioning on a higher level of consciousness. I'm
saying, like, they're seeing some things. They got it. And I just want to figure out how to get.
They're not caught up with the externals.
Yeah.
They're not caught up with the 3 plus 1 or the 2 plus 2. That doesn't matter. That's okay. The externals, interesting, great. But what's the internal thing happening behind that? What's the reality behind the externals? This point to me is so powerful because, again, and I say this a lot, it ties back into the logic. How can it be that I'm so close-minded that I refuse to hear you saying 3 plus 1, and I'm stuck with 2 plus 2. And that despite you saying I'm experiencing this and I have this, it's clear I've achieved 4 like this, and it's so prominent. It's so prominent that amongst religious people, spiritual people, that they think like this. And so when I hear this, just from the logic perspective, I'm sold. I'm like, okay, Krishna consciousness makes sense to me because it allows me to acknowledge that this is not, I don't have to be that person who's being told, no, this is the only path. And then I have to just accept that and say that to other people. If I choose to believe in Krishna consciousness, that means that I have to accept that you're wrong and I'm right. It doesn't make sense that you're wrong and I'm right.
That's right.
Or that you're right and I'm wrong.
And even, in the scope of Krishna consciousness, it doesn't even mean that you have to agree with everything in Krishna consciousness. You might vibe better with some things than other things, but like, and I feel like this is the thing about spiritual people. Like, they're so not, like you said, they're like not caught up with how you got there. It's like there's 4, and it's like, but do you know that there's like 8 and 16 and 32? And they're like, yo, what? Like, there's so many more forms and so much more intimacy, and there's so much more to go, that their math is so far beyond. And for me, I honestly feel like it's that's where I want to get. I no longer want to spend my time invalidating somebody else's experience and their existence. Right. I kind of just want to look at it and have that moment where I'm like, okay, but we're both trying to get to 4. But even past 4, like, there's so much more, even past 4. Like, 4 is just like starting point. And we're like, what? Like, I thought, like, just getting to 4 is like, no. When you get to 4, then it multiplies.
And then I'm just laughing at the neophyte still like, yeah, but 2 plus 2.
Yeah.
2 plus 2.
And that's what happens, and they're like, you 3 plus 1ers can't exist. And I'm like,
never mind going past 4.
Yeah. If you believe in 3 plus 1, that's it. There's no room for you. And I'm like, but except for it also makes 4. So whether, for you, God has a form and you call him Krishna, or you just decide to refer to her as Radharani, or you decide to refer to them as the universe, or you decide to say, like, I'm not going to use any names, no labels, no nothing. I just know something's there and I'm going to feel it. I know it when I feel it. Cool.
You've made me hit my chest
emotionally
multiple times today, Acyuta. I love it. I love this quote as well that Raphael just shared. I love this quote. Love this one. When I first heard it, I read it in Radhanath Swami's book, Journey Home. That's the first time I came across it, and I shared it continuously with people after I came across it, but let me just read it out here as well.
Yeah.
Like when Radhanath Swami said, a dog will recognize his master in whatever way he dresses. The master may dress in robes, a suit and tie, or stand naked, but the dog will always recognize the master. And that's our analogy for how we can relate to God. And then he says, and if we can't recognize that God is the same master coming to us in different clothes, in different times, in different ways, then we have something to learn from the dog.
Isn't that something? And what's cool is, like we say with all good analogies, and Srila Prabhupada has actually spoken that analogy, which is it's really sweet when he says it. But what's cool about analogies, Srila Prabhupada says, a good analogy, according to like the rules of logic and debate and all these things, right? A good analogy should be able to be seen through completely, right? So a dog will recognize his master. The dog will know, right? Through scent, through whatever it is. But so will the master. The master will always know. So no matter how we show up, no matter what we've been through, no matter, and that's a story for another day, but no matter what we've been through, no matter what scars we carry, no matter what we think has changed us, Krishna knows us. And Krishna knows, no, that's all that Krishna sees. What I love about Krishna so much is that when he looks at us, he doesn't see the mistakes. He doesn't see all the stuff. All he sees is, no, that's my friend. That's my person who does this and this and this. That's my person who, oh my God, I get so happy when they, that's all he sees.
Just quick, so the more you get into spirituality, and then you start hearing about analogies, and then you go down the whole spiritual debating, and et cetera, and then you start to realize that there is it's a scientific realm that we can dive into, and it gets so detailed and so specific, and there's so many nuances, and there's a whole world around it that we're just oblivious to. So like that, a good analogy. There's a science around analogies, and you can
Yeah,
go into
right?
that. And those who are well versed in spiritual conversation understand the nuances of this particular subject. And on that, okay, we could just go forever and ever and ever here. I'm a little conscious of the time. Just very quickly share one analogy, because I felt like the other day, me and Sundari, we were in Spain not long ago, and we got to live one of the analogies. We got to experience one of them. It was so cool. It was mind blown moment. So I just share it with you quickly. We went to the beach. We were chanting japa at the beach for sunrise. And because where we were in Spain, near Barcelona, the Mediterranean's on the east, right? So the sun's rising over the ocean, over the sea. And so we were there chanting japa. And as the sun was rising, so just as it had fully passed the horizon of the sea, and it was just there, and its reflection was coming through the water, over the water like a straight line, and landing directly on me and Sundari, right?
Gorgeous.
So Sundari says, "You're kidding. Look, the sun's directly on us right now. What a crazy moment." Yeah. And so I said, that's not how this works. It can't just be right now that the sun's just on us.
Yeah.
So let's just move over this way a little bit. And, and of course, it looked like the sun followed us.
Yeah.
Reflection of the sun was still on us. And then Sundari went over there and I went over here, and she was saying, "Wait, the sun's on me right now." And I said, no, the sun's on me right now, Sundari.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And so it was that moment that we realized this is one of those analogies given to show how Krishna is unlimited, inconceivably unlimited, and that he's able to interact with each of us simultaneously.
Yeah.
So even though there may be billions of cowherd boys, his friends, or gopis, his lovers, or when you read the Mahabharata, when he had 16,108 wives, is that each person, doesn't matter who they are, is feeling as though the sun is shining right on them in that moment. There could have been a million of us standing along the beach, and we would have all thought the sun is shining directly on me right now. And so with Krishna, that's how it feels too. It feels like we're dealing directly with, he's got time to be with each of us inconceivably. And so that's one of those analogies that's used. And we were there, we were in it, because we don't get to experience that type of analogy very often here in England. We don't see the sunrise very often.
Yeah.
Nor do we have the ocean super close to where we are.
Yeah.
So it was one of those moments where we were just like, whoa, mind blown.
That is such a beautiful, that's a beautiful experience. And, it's like when they talk about it, it's like Krishna and his energy is like the sun and the sunshine and all these things. And then when you get that undivided attention, right? Yeah. It feels undivided. It hits different, like you're like, I could have been living my life normally, but there's something about it being in the right place at the right time with all this undivided attention. Like it's those moments that stay with you. And I wrote, like, there's a super short poem that I wrote, which now winds up just sounding like a cool line. When it's written, it looks like a poem, but because it doesn't rhyme, it was, you were created by the same person who created the magic of sunrises and sunsets. Don't ever think yourself any less magnificent. Oof. There's a person, and that's all he wants. He doesn't tell Arjuna, you know what, Arjuna, you should think of yourself as the lowest of the low. He's like, no, you're my friend, you're my buddy, you're my homie, you're my family. You're my everything. And he's like, and I know I'm your everything. And that's all that there is. Like the whole the whole basis of this Bhagavad Gita, the whole reason Arjuna's doubts are able to be cleared. He's like, look, when all is said and done, I could destroy them myself, but I'm yours and you're mine, and we're here together.
Dropping bombs today, Acyuta. Dropping bombs.
It's been a good one.
All
of these are good ones.
Yo, some of the things today have hit me personally really hard. I had a few moments throughout our discussion today that really struck me powerfully. So, like I said, we've said this from the start, that this podcast was about us going deeper. That this is a journey to joy for us, and we're just sharing it with people. And if it has any benefit to anyone else, then great. And today was a prime example of that, how it's really about, I've taken so much away from it. So thank you, Acyuta, for your really such nice, wonderful, experienced. That's how I feel with what you're saying. That's the vibe I get from you, is that you're feeling something, which is super important. And it's really inspiring. A lot of gratitude for your time here, sharing with us all. And if you don't mind, a couple minutes before we wrap up, maybe we could finish with a little bit of Kirtan.
Sure.
Just briefly, I know we've gone on for super long, way longer than we normally do.
By like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not
way longer. Okay. All right. I'll mute.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Radha Gokula Nanda Radha Gokula Nanda Radhe Jaya Radha Landanishwar Radha Landanishwar Radhe Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande. Hari 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 Bo. Thank you so much, Acyuta. That was beautiful.
My absolute pleasure.
So beautiful. And it ain't over.
That's right.
It ain't
2
over.
weeks.
2 weeks. We're going to be back in 2 weeks, friends. So please come and join us again. Today's been a fantastic, wonderful episode. And the best part of it is that we're going to be back at it again in 2 weeks. Same time, same place. You can join us in our Zoom room as well if you want. That way we get to hang out a little bit potentially afterwards. We can ask more intimate questions. So feel free. Our links are always in our Kirtan London bio. It's in our Kirtan London bio on Instagram. So you can catch us there. Of course, you can join us on YouTube as well. And I'm looking forward to the next one. What can I say?
Mm-hmm.
All right, friends. Big love. We'll see you next time.